Hi there, welcome into Beyond the Briefing. I'm JP Dice, and we are talking about clouds and turbulence and how to keep your passengers calm on some of those flights that are not so friendly. You know the ones I'm talking about, the airplane's bumping and shaking, it's raining outside, and just not the prettiest weather days. Completely safe flying, but not the smoothest flights. And in this week's edition, I am joined by my wife, Aliece, and she's going to talk all about some of the flights that we've had and some of the experiences. It's not always a pretty picture out there when we're going from point A to point B. I told you I'd have a guest, and here she is. Without further ado, my wife, Aliece, and she's been on many, many trips with me. In fact, when I finished my private pilot check ride, and I'd finished with the examiner, and for a long time, every check ride I would do, she would be out at the airport waiting to see, how I did and congratulate me when I passed. So she was out there, and I said, hey, you want to go for a ride? And we went up in a Cessna 172, and we flew around. It's pretty fun. You trusted me right out of the get-go.
Pretty uneventful, yep.
Right out of the get-go. So we flew a lot in those days. VFR, bought a Piper Archer, and I'm like you guys, some of you, VFR only pilot in the beginning, and went on a lot of trips. VFR, we went to Key West, Bahamas.
We did.
Charleston, South Carolina, Savannah, all the beach trips down to Orange Beach, Gulf Shores, Panama City, all of those areas, and we flew Fort Lauderdale, all VFR. And that means, obviously, we're staying out of the clouds.
Right.
And you like that.
I did. Yep.
You like just puttering around and staying out of the clouds and flying on a pretty day.
I do.
So after instrument ratings and everything else that I added on my certificate, we started flying around and going on bigger trips. And we started flying in and out of clouds. Sometimes the clouds would be a little bumpy. And what were your thoughts when we transitioned into instrument flying?
Well, I had not gone through the instrument training, so I haven't, I had no reference point that if you went into a cloud and it got bumpy, that it wouldn't get dramatically worse. I didn't have a lot of experience with that, so I didn't know what to expect, so that part was kind of scary. And then when we actually started doing it, I noticed that I was getting a little bit of motion sickness.
Yeah.
So that has a lot to do with me dreading clouds.
See, I think the turning point, what happened, everything was pretty cool until there was a trip coming back from
South Carolina.
Yeah, from Hilton Head, and something happened around LaGrange, Georgia, and we went through a cloud, and then after that, and nothing really, the plane didn't go out of control or anything really bizarre. It just, there was some up and down movements in there, and after that, not a big fan.
No, not a big fan.
So we have some methodologies. Otherwise, if you do this, and we'll give you some advice here, pilots. If you have a spouse, and it could be, doesn't have to be ladies. There's some guys that, are the same way. So if your husband is the person who's not a fan of the clouds or the bumps, or vice versa, or your kids, or whoever flies with you all the time, you can mitigate this. If you don't, they're never going to get in an airplane with you again. And that's not a good thing. You want to mitigate it. So what we do, and some obvious things, we fly early in the morning, or we fly late in the evening, and we avoid kind of the middle of the day when you have most of those cumulus buildups. Now, I'm not going to sell you out as a wimpy flyer because, I remember one of the first things we did after I got my instrument rating, we flew up to Huntsville, and went up to Huntsville International, and we did an ILS approach. We took off. We never saw another thing visually until we broke out at about 700 feet, and there's the runway. And what was your reaction to that?
I thought it was cool.
Was it bumpy, though?
No, it wasn't bumpy, and it was early in the day. It was just different. But I think just having a loss of control on my part, not on your part, but the passenger's part. They don't know, what's coming. They don't know if the bumps are going to get worse, and if they're already feeling a little bit sick. They don't know if they're going to, end up being sick in an airplane. So if you're with somebody you don't know, maybe it's embarrassing to think,
Yeah.
What if I get sick in here in their airplane, and then the whole anxiety starts. So I don't know if that's everybody's issue, but I can definitely see where it would cause some issues, like with just anxiety, and you're thinking, I don't want to be sick in here, and then you've got that feeling, you physically feel bad because you are being bumped around, and you don't know if the bumps are gonna get worse, or are we gonna do some kind of weird attitude, or what's gonna happen. So just a whole loss of control.
I think as a pilot, I think what is important to do is several things. You can do the time of day and try to mitigate it that way. If you get to your destination before 11 a.m., leave early in the morning, or you leave to go somewhere at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, or even a little bit later. Night flight, for instance, is incredibly smooth. There's some other issues sometimes with night flight.
Overall.
Overall it's fantastic, but in a single engine airplane, there's some risks that you also take when you're flying single engine at night that you have to be aware of. But overall, it's like flying on glass with no sense of motion. The other thing is slow down. Okay. So if you're, and I think you noticed a lot of this when we switched to from the Piper Archer to the Mooney.
Yes.
The Piper Archer, is a much slower airplane. It would hit a bump and it would boom most of the time. The Mooney would hit one, and if you don't really have good control of your speed, it's like it's more jolting.
Right.
Because you're going, 40 knots faster or whatever. So slow down. If it's enough turbulence anyway, you need to be slowing down to your maneuvering speed just for the structural integrity of the airplane anyway. So do that. And also, what I try to do with you?
What?
Is tell you what's coming.
Yeah.
It's like,
you do.
Hey, we're about to cross some terrain. It's going to start bumping. And if you know what's coming, it makes it better.
Right. Prepare for I'm always preparing for the worst.
Like the Birmingham bump. If you're from the Birmingham area, you're coming back, say, from the beach, and you're going to land at Birmingham International. And they're going to put you on, especially if it's going to be like runway 24 and you're over Double Oak Mountain and all this. That thing, as you're coming down, it's going to bump.
I felt it.
And you're going to shake around a little bit. Tell whoever's in the plane with you, hey, you're going to have some bumps here because we're coming back down. What causes the bumps? It's not necessarily, the bumps aren't caused by wind. They're caused by either the up and down motions in the clouds, or you've got the thermals coming up from the ground if you're low enough. A lot of times we try to get high enough to get above those. And then if you're going down to the beach, you have that differential heating between the water and the terrain, and that causes bumps. How many times you notice you're flying down to Panama City, we're smooth as silk, and then we start getting close to the airport, what happens?
Yeah, but those aren't as bad because you can see. You're not inside a cloud being lifted up and dropped and different things, so it's a little different.
So you don't want to be IMC in bumpy weather.
That's the worst. I would say that's the worst.
Yeah. Like
because
coming out of Beaufort, South Carolina, remember that one?
Yeah, that was terrible because you can't see. You already can't see, and then you've got these sensations coming, like you're like a roller coaster. You feel like you're dropping, and then you feel like you're going up really fast, and your stomach. Maybe you just you're thinking the whole time, maybe I shouldn't have eaten. I screwed up. I shouldn't have eaten. So.
You're good with the other passengers, though. If there's somebody else on the airplane, you're good with kind of telling them what's going to happen.
I would just say this though: if you don't want to have someone to totally give up on flying, because we know of a person who's like that. They totally gave up on it because it ruined their whole entire trip. And when they told me this story, I was like, wow. They would dread the trip before the trip. They would dread after they got to their destination, whether it be beach or whatever, and they would be just panic-stricken the whole entire time, and it would ruin the whole vacation. So if you aren't willing to work with a person like that, then you are going to have people who just simply will not try it again. You've got to work with people who have any kind of phobia or anxiety or true motion sickness, a true physical sickness. Whatever it is, you have to work with that person, or they simply just will not get back in there.
I got to tell you the story. So this story I'm about to tell. So we had flown over to Beaufort, South Carolina. I had some flight training over there. Spent a couple of days. Fantastic, good flight over. And then we're going to leave Beaufort, South Carolina. We're going to fly from Beaufort all the way down to Key West, Florida.
Yep.
And it was just kind of yucky weather when we left Beaufort. And we were in some rain, and it's kind of bumping up and down. Then we were over Florida, and it continued to do this. And I'm going to tell you right now, I like a smooth ride more than a turbulent ride, but I can deal with it. You know, I can deal with it. I don't prefer it. Who likes bumps? You know, right? So we're over Florida, and it's shaking like crazy and bumping. No matter what I would do, I was trying to change altitudes. Just one of those things, you could not fix it. And Aliece is over there. Show them the position. Pretend the handle's here. Show them the position.
Yeah, I'm like holding on.
And then you kind of slide down in the seat.
Yeah.
It's kind of like this. And
the brace for impact position.
Yeah. I'm sure some of you guys have seen this. Anybody that flies an airplane, you've had that passenger like that.
They slide down in their seat because you don't want to hit your head.
Yeah, which we've done that before. So we land in Sebring, Florida. All right. And get out of the plane and go inside the FBO, and we're sitting there. And
I'm pretty much mad as hell.
Yeah, not good. And we're going to get something to eat, get some fuel, and proceed. And Aliece is like, well, you know, I'm going to fly the airlines down there. I'm like, we're in Sebring, Florida. Where are you going to get on
I think I first said I was going to drive it.
Yeah, I'm like, that's a long way.
Yeah.
And you're like, well, I'm going to fly the airlines. I'm like, well, you're going to have to get to Orlando or Tampa to do that. So that's not going to work. So there was like a 2 or 3 hour process here. And I'm like, hey, I need you to, you know, we can make this better. No, not going to do it. So I'm sitting there and I'm like, okay. So after a few hours pass and we're talking to people in there, and she kind of gets her mind off it a little bit. She's like, well, I'll give it a try, because here's what I said. I said, if we get up there, this thing starts shaking and all that, we're going to circle right back and we're going to come back, we'll land, and we won't worry about it. That's going to be the end of that. So at least you had a way out. It's not like somebody's put you in the plane and here we're going no matter what.
Right.
So we go. And at the same time, I'm sitting here thinking, which I'm not telling you all of this, but this is what's going on my head. I'm like, she's going to be okay to do this. We're going to get in the air. And now the weather's kind of yuck in Key West. I'm going to have to be over the ocean at night doing an instrument approach in yucky weather going into Key West. But it's going to be smooth. And we did it. And I will say it turned out to be a very smooth ride. It was beautiful above the clouds. The sunset and everything that we saw, and we descended in to the clouds on the approach coming into Key West International. It was nighttime, broke out of the clouds. It was raining, and we were coming in at night over Mallory Square, and you could see the hotel, and down there were the cruise ships parked and everything, and landed. And that was actually one of my favorite flights ever. And it was fun. And we ate tacos when we landed. So she wasn't too motion sick.
I think there's a valuable lesson in that, though, too. You know, you have to spin it a little bit to never let your passenger dictate your
safety.
Yeah, your safety either. So
are you telling me some passengers will dictate safety?
I think that they try because they don't know any better. But as a pilot, you have to know your own limitations, and you've flown plenty at night. Plenty.
And it was, when I say bad weather, it was kind of some light rain, and it was a little bit overcast. It was not stormy.
There were no storms, nothing like that. But if you have somebody out there that does not fly a whole lot at night, or in IMC or whatever, that is not. You should tell that. You should tell your passenger, you know what? We're gonna get a hotel. We'll try it again tomorrow. You just need to rest.
We'll do it early in the morning.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that worked out okay. That was about the only time that you've ever said, "Hey, I'm not getting in the plane. We're just not doing it."
Yeah. By that, see, it was super hot, and that is part of it too. When you're really, really hot and sweaty, and you haven't eaten, or maybe you have eaten the wrong thing, you got a headache, you're nauseated, you're motion sick. It just was and it was a long amount of bumps. Like it seemed like we bumped for over an hour.
It was the entire length of the state of Florida.
Yeah,
I mean, well, really, it was from Beaufort, South Carolina to Sebring, Florida, which is, Sebring is south of Lakeland and everything. That was a good, probably 2.5 hours of boom, 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 boom.
Pretty hard ones, yeah. So, and I do okay with some of the turbulence, but those were a little much. I also think it has a lot to do with how your, I almost said patient, how your passenger feels going into it. So if they go into it and they don't feel especially good that day, or if they kind of wake up and they, maybe have a headache that day or whatever, it can affect a lot of things.
What's your favorite time to fly? If we're going somewhere and you said, hey, I'm going to pick a time of day.
I would like to leave, if it's safe, around 8 o'clock, 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning.
Okay.
If it's, if there's not fog 50 feet off the ground.
Sure.
But if it's safe, then yeah, I like to leave early and get back to where I'm going. That way I've got the rest of the day free, and it's typically not bumpy. You avoid the afternoon storms.
I'll tell you what, another good flight we had is I had some stuff going on. We left late in the day and went to Gulf Shores. And got down there probably at 6, 7 o'clock in the evening. Yep. Man, was that not one of the best flights ever?
Yep, that was nice.
I mean, not one bump.
That was nice too.
And also, some of this also depends on the airplane. Because
depends on where you live too.
Depends on where you live. If you're in mountainous terrain or whatever, you have a lot more bumps to deal with. But the airplanes, the plane we own is a Mooney. And
we obviously live in the South, if you couldn't tell by my accent. So
you could be imported somewhere else.
True, very true.
Yeah, we could be right here in Vermont, and we could have brought you in from the South.
Very true.
But we're in the Birmingham area. Anyway, so another airplane that I fly on occasion is a Piper M350, and that's if you didn't already know, it's kind of like the modern brand new version of the Piper Mirage. Decent sized airplane, cabin class, pressurized, air conditioned. It's a Cadillac of an airplane. Stairs, you don't walk on the wings to get in. So I took in that airplane on a few trips, and you get in there, and we're going through clouds and everything else, and you're totally like, yeah, it's no big deal.
No big deal. One reason is because when we're climbing out through the clouds, it's 15 seconds, 10 seconds.
It climbs so much faster.
Yeah, and we're out. I'm like, okay, wow.
It's not living in the cloud, and it has a ceiling of 25,000 feet, so it's kind of a shorter duration through. You're not in the murk the entire time.
Right, and that airplane just handles turbulence different. I don't know.
A lot of it has to do with the wing.
Yeah.
Wing design. So yeah, it does. It is. It's although the worst turbulence that I have ever felt has been in that airplane. And that was out in the desert Southwest, ascending down a mountain range, going into Winslow, Arizona, and hit so hard, autopilot disconnected, the oxygen generator cast message, a light came on, and I mean, everybody in the plane hit their head in the ceiling despite having seatbelts on. And the owner of the airplane, he actually cut his head. He hit so hard.
I'm glad I wasn't in that one.
I mean, and it was clear. It was absolutely clear air turbulence. It was those little rotors that come in off the mountain ranges. Mountains generate their own turbulence. If you've been on an airline plane, you've flown across the country, I can always feel when you're crossing the higher terrain, like the Rockies, you start bumping. And then you start getting into the turbulence issues when you're in the flight levels, when you're, 30,000 feet, 40,000 feet, you're crossing jet streams and things like that. Really, some of the smoothest air you can find is if you're in an airplane that, lives somewhere between about 8 and 15,000 feet.
I was going to say, some of the smoothest air we've ever found has been around 10 to 12.
Yeah, right through there.
In the 350.
Yeah, or even 17.
17 was great.
Yeah. So, a lot of it is because the higher you go, that's when you're starting to interact with jet streams. And the lower you are, you have more terrain interaction, and you also have the thermals that you're dealing with. And then once you're, when you're in the upper teens to lower 20s, there's a lot of cloud cover that you're actually on top of. Been very fun talking to you today about this. It's a therapy session is what it is. And I wanted to bring in somebody because I know we all fly with somebody that they're a little gun shy, and it's not a fear that you're going to die.
No, that's never crossed my mind. I guess it should. It should cross all of our minds when we're,
Hopefully, we're not going to penetrate thunderstorms.
thousands of feet in the air. But
Yeah.
it's not that drastic. It's just for me personally, it's just a motion sickness slash the unknown.
Yeah.
You know.
Despite me being a meteorologist to try to tell you what's going to happen in there, it doesn't do any good. Here's another thing.
Me and all my 1,000 questions up there. What is this? What is that?
Yeah, what's this button do?
No, like the clouds. Like, what is this? Or are we going to hit that cloud up there?
I remember one of the funniest things she ever said. We were in one of the airplanes, and the switches are overhead, and it says battery master. And the way she was looking at it, she said, "What is that switch? It says butt master." I'm like, "It's battery master."
Yeah, I was like, "What is that?"
It's the butt master.
Yeah.
So I'll share this little tidbit. So anytime I do a check ride, I'm doing a new rating. So Aliece will take the exam just to see how she can do on the FAA exam, just for the fun of it. So I had some students that were struggling with the written test, and students procrastinate. Man, they will procrastinate. All of them do. Just about. I've got a few that go out and just take a test, but a lot of them, it's kind of like, oh, I got to go take the test. Anyway, she's like, what are these folks struggling with? She said, I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to take this test. So she goes and she takes the test and never studies for anything. She's not sitting there like all of us going through Study Buddy and all this stuff to learn these tests.
I don't even know what Study Buddy is.
So she's like, well, I think I'm finished with it. About an hour and a half later, and she's like, well, this is not too bad. She made a 93 and never even studied.
So that means maybe people are overthinking it a little bit?
Maybe. I think those questions, I'm an instructor, but I still think those questions are somewhat confusing. And they always are. It's like the same dude wrote all of the questions for the FAA. It's the same dude.
Some of them are obviously not, some of them are obviously wrong, so I just kind of scoot those out.
Yeah.
And kind of go with what's left.
Great skills there. I need to learn that too. So anyway, we're gonna go do something else. I just wanted to make sure that you guys had kind of some insight from a passenger who was flying a lot in some of the smaller aircraft. But I appreciate you hanging out this evening here on Beyond the Briefing.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and you guys fly safe. We're always here to help you with any information that you need to know to be a safer pilot. Remember, and we talk about this all the time, weather-related accidents, if we could eliminate that, we would have a big chunk of general aviation accidents taken away. A lot of fatalities would go away. A lot of these accidents happen because people are launching out into stuff that, for whatever reason, they shouldn't. Maybe they don't know any better. Maybe they didn't learn it. Maybe they just, think they're invincible.
Maybe their passenger wants to
control
the shots.
That's right. Never let the passenger control the shots. Although you didn't, I would have never put us in any risky situation. You didn't do it that much.
Nah.
Anytime you start adding instrument approaches and nighttime and things like that, yes, on the whole risk, we used to, it's called a FRAD assessment, and a lot of the corporate aviation departments have this. Anytime you start adding things to it, it makes it, sure, it's going to be riskier than if it's completely sunny out, but we have instrument ratings, so we can fly in at least a few clouds here and there.
And you definitely use your instrument rating, so
it makes things a whole lot safer.
Yeah.
Make sure you subscribe and like. Hopefully you do like this, and share it with others, because I'm going to keep putting these videos out in hopes of educating folks about flying and weather. Anyway, see you later.